Bachelor of Science in Hospitality Management student of Batangas State University. Maybe you're watching this video because you're a student like me, a teacher, a stakeholder, or just an individual who are curious on how to limit risk and hazard in hospitality management. But don't you worry, I will give you information about those topics. And after watching this video, I hope that you gain knowledge that you needed. So, I hope that you finish this video. And before we start, let's identify what is risk and what is hazard. Either different or the same. So, what is hazard? Hazard, or commonly known as occupational safety hazard, are natural risks that is present in the workplace. Risk, or also known as occupational health risk, is the possibility of suffering health impairment due to the exposure to hazard that is present in the certain workplace. And to make it clear, I will give you an example. A wet floor is a hazard, and exposing yourself in a wet floor is a risk. So, risk is equals to hazard plus exposure. Now that we are done talking with the differences of the risk and the hazard, we will be now discussing the hazard and risk that is present in the workplace. And right after, we will be discussing the ways on how we can prevent or eliminate those hazards. Workplace hazards includes physical and mechanical hazard, biological hazard, psychosocial hazard, chemical hazard, and ergonomic risk factors. Physical and mechanical hazards. Physical hazards are a common source of injuries in many industries. They are perhaps unavoidable in certain industries, but over time, people have been developed safety methods and procedures to manage the risk of physical danger in the workplace. Its example is the falls, machine-related such as burns, cuts, shear and stab, confined spaces, or having limited openings for entry and exit, noise, electrical injuries, and temperature extreme. Biological hazards. Biological hazards, also known as biohazards, refer to biological substances that pose a threat to the health of living organisms, primarily that of human. This can include medical waste or samples of microorganisms, viruses, or toxins that can affect human health. A chemical hazard is simply the risk involved with using a chemical. So in the workplace, chemical hazard can be a health hazard, wherein workers and other personnel are exposed to hazardous chemicals through inhalation, absorption through the skin, or ingestion and swallowing. Psychosocial hazards are hazards that is related to the way work is designed, organized, and managed, as well as the economic and social context of the work are associated with psychiatric, psychosocial, and or physical injury or illness. Linked to psychosocial risks are issues such as occupational stress, workplace violence, which are recognized internationally as major challenges to occupational health and safety. Ergonomic risk factors are the aspect of job or task that impose a biomechanical stress on the worker. Such examples include bending, lifting, lighting, noise, compressions or contact stress, forceful exertions, and awkward postures. Accidents are sometimes being used interchangeably, but they are different, though they are complement to each other. Accidents are reactive while risks are preventive. Common related injury in food service industry includes burns, which is an injury from contact with hot surfaces or equipment, flames, hot food, liquids, and others. It also includes cuts, which is an opening from accidental incision of sharp objects that can cause exposure to blood-borne pathogens such as hepatitis B and HIV. Slip, strips, and falls. Open ranges, stove doors, kitchen doors, stairs, defective ladder, and wet are some of those common sources of injury. Fires, accidental ignition of hot oils and greases, paper materials coming into contact with hot stoves and ovens, faulty electrical equipment are some of the usual causes of fires. Ergonomic risks are injuries from postures when sitting, kneeling, and standing, incorrect lifting techniques, forceful motions or grips for an object can cause ergonomic risk. Cleaning chemicals are cleaning products such as bleaches and oven cleaners. CO poisoning. Carbon monoxide is produced by incomplete burning of solid, liquid, and gaseous fuels such as charcoal, and it may cause death if there is improper ventilation. Heat stress. Heat stroke is one of the most common effects of long exposure to the hot equipment. Cold stress. Hyperthermia is one of the most common effects of long working in a walk-in refrigerator without proper preventive measures. Now that we are done talking with the risks and hazard present in the workplace, we will be now discussing the ways on how we can eliminate those hazards. Use of personal protective equipment. The employer must provide suitable and properly maintained personal protective equipment, and they must ensure that employees are well trained on its use for them to properly use. Administrative controls. It is a changes in work procedures such as written safety policies, supervisions, schedules, and with the goal of reducing the duration, frequency, and the severity exposure to hazardous chemicals or engineering controls. This includes elimination of hazards through designing the facility of processes or to remove the hazard, or substituting process equipment or materials to reduce the hazard. Isolate hazard from people. This means physically separating the source of harm from people by distance or using barriers. For example, introducing the strict work area, using guardrails around the exposed edges, using remote control system to operate the machineries, and storing the chemicals to a few sources such as OSHA, Standard and Guidance Industry, Consciousness Standard, National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, publications, manufacturers, literatures, and engineering reports to identify control measures. In this way, you will be guided with a legal basis on preventing the hazard. Observe personal habit and personal hygiene. A clean, hygienic environment starts with a healthy food handler. For a food handler to be considered healthy, he or she must be free from diseases that may contaminate food, such as intestinal disorders, respiratory tract diseases, and skin diseases or disorders. All of us carry disease-causing microorganisms that can be transferred to food. By staying healthy and keeping clean, we can help to prevent the outbreak of foodborne illness. To make sure your employees and others, such as visitors, are kept safe from harm, you must assess the risk arising from slip and trips and take sensible precautions to reduce this risk to as low as level as possible. Some simple things to consider includes spilled substances. Spills from food or cooking are among the main causes of slips and should be immediately cleaned up. You must post warning signs around field or wet floors. Flooring. Regularly check flooring condition and don't put off repairs. As a temporary measure, highlight any damaged areas and, where possible, keep people away. Unexpected trip hazard. Make sure boxes, bags, cables, and other obstacles aren't left flying around. Storage should always be provided for incoming deliveries and staff belongings. Cleaning. Most slips happen on wet or dirty floors, so it's important to ensure floors are cleaned regularly and to keep free from water and grease. Anything on the floor should also be quickly and effectively removed. Make sure cleaning is correctly carried out and use slip-resistant waxes to polish and treat floors. Ways to further reduce the risk of injury includes installing non-slip tailing or other non-slip products using rubber mats in areas where floors are constantly wet, and encouraging staff to wear non-slip footwear. Hospitality businesses can expect a constant stream of guests arriving and departing, and the law requires that premises are safe for use of both visitors and employees. Gas appliances, fuse, pipework, and safety devices must also be maintained in safe condition. Employers must make sure that there is a good lighting, especially on stairs or pedestrian areas that are uneven, so that people can see ahead clearly. You should always Test fire detectors and alarms to ensure that they are in good condition. The Manual Handling Operation Regulation of 1992 says that employees must avoid the need of hazardous manual handling where possible, assess the risk of injury from hazardous manual handling that can be avoided, and reduce the risk of injury from hazardous manual handling as far as reasonably possible. Fortunately, although manual handling injuries are common, actions can easily be taken to prevent or minimize such injuries by training staff in proper lifting techniques, using mechanical aids like hand trolleys, package jacks, carts, and concierge trolleys, and thinking about the work area and organizing it in a way that reduces the need for lifting, moving, and carrying. Now that we are done talking with the elimination of risk and hazard in the workplace, we will be moving on the risk and hazard that is present in the food service operation. And right after, we will be discussing on how we can eliminate these hazards. Risk and hazard that can be present in the food service industry includes biological hazard, chemical hazard, physical hazard, allergenic hazard, nutritional hazard, and biotechnology-related hazards. It is the hazard acquired from disease-causing microorganisms and the poisonous toxins that may produce. They are the far most dangerous foodborne hazard in the food service and food retail businesses. This includes harmful microorganisms that can be seen only under the microscope such as bacteria, viruses, parasites, molds, yeast, and the biological substance prion, a protein molecule, and other living organisms such as insects, rodents, farm animals, domestic pets, birds, fish, and plants. Chemical hazards: any chemical that can cause illness, injury, or an emergency. The amount of chemical may be determined whether it is a hazard or not. Some may require exposure over prolonged periods to have a toxic effect. Physical hazards are either foreign materials unintentionally introduced to food products, such as metal fragments in minced meat, or naturally occurring objects such as bone in fish that pose threats to the consumers. Allergenic hazards. Allergies are the sixth leading cause of chronic illness in the U.S. Allergenic reactions occur when the human body produces an abnormal immune response to specific proteins found in food. Nutritional hazards. Nutrients are essential to maintain good health and pertain to a group of substances which includes carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. Technology-related hazard, also known as novel foods. The application of science and engineering to the direct or indirect use of living organisms or parts or products of living organisms in their natural or modified forms. Taking daily baths. Taking a bath daily is the most basic requirement among food handlers as it ensures their cleanliness. Trimming of nails. Trimmed nails are requisite for food preparation. Untrimmed nails are not only unsightly but also potential sources of contamination. Shaving and haircuts for males. As facial hair is the source of contamination, male food handlers are required to shave as necessary. Short, neat haircuts must be maintained as well. Covering of wounds. Wounds or cuts must be properly covered with moisture-proof bandage, to which must be frequently changed to prevent the risk of contamination. Wearing of jewelry must be prohibited at all times. Aside from being physical hazard, jewelry may also become biological hazard as they have crevices that can harbor microbial growth. Wearing of nail polish or false artificial fingernails should be prohibited because nail can get into food. Wearing of nail polish or false fingernails should not be allowed among food handlers. Smoking and eating. A high standard or cleanliness must be practiced by food handlers at all times. Any unhygienic practice that could result in cross-contamination of food, such as smoking and eating inside the kitchen, should not be allowed. Eating and smoking areas must be set up outside the kitchen premises. Hand washing. Single most important practice in preventing the spread of foodborne illness is the proper hand washing. Food service employees should wash their hands regularly. Since person-to-person contamination can play a significant role in the spread of some enteric pathogens, hand hygiene is a critical element in any outbreak prevention control strategy. I have here the steps in proper hand washing. So step 1, wet the hands with warm running water. Step 2, with soap, thoroughly wash the hands and lather up to the elbow. Step 3, scrub thoroughly using a brush for the nails, then rinse. Step 4, resoap and rub hands for at least 20 seconds. Pay attention to the back of the hands, whisk between the fingers and under the fingernails. Step 5, hands should be rinsed well under running water. Step 6, hands should be dried with a single-use towel or hot air dryer. Step 7, turn the faucet using paper towel to prevent contaminating it again. And lastly, step 8, use a disinfectant if available. Tasting of food. A small amount of the food to be sampled must be transferred into a separate bowl. The dish must be tested with a clean spoon that must be immediately washed after use. Never taste the food with the fingers. Storing personal belongings. Personal belongings like bags and clothes should be stored in the lockers or cabinets away from the food preparation areas. Blowing air into the plastic bags or using the teeth for opening packages are prohibited in the food production. Blowing into food containers like plastic bags bring airborne microorganisms in contact with the contents of the container. Opening packages using one's teeth are potential sources of contamination as well. Prevention of foodborne illnesses. Most cases of foodborne illnesses can be prevented through the proper cooking or processing of food. In addition, because of the bacteria multiply rapidly between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, food must be kept out of this stage. Food preparation stage. Refrigerate food promptly. If prepared food stands at room temperature for more than 2 hours, it may not be safe anymore. Set refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower and your freezer at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Prevent cross-contamination. Bacteria can spread from one food product to another throughout the kitchen and can get into cutting boards, knives, sponges, and countertops. Keep raw meat, poultry, seafood, and their juices away from ready-to-eat foods. Handle food properly. Always wash your hands properly for at least 20 seconds with warm soapy water before and after handling raw meat, poultry fish, shellfish, produce, or eggs. Wash your hands after using the bathroom, changing diapers, or touching animals. Wash utensils and surfaces before and after use with hot soapy water. Better still, sanitize them with diluted bleach, 1 teaspoon of bleach to 1 quart of hot water. Wash sponges and dish towels weekly in hot water in the washing machine. Cook food with appropriate internal temperature, 145 degrees for roast, steaks, and chop of beef, veal, and lamb, 160 degrees Fahrenheit for pork, ground beef, and ground beef, 165 degrees Fahrenheit for ground poultry, and 180 degrees Fahrenheit for whole poultry. Use a meat thermometer to be sure. Foods are properly cooked only when they are heated long enough at and high temperature to kill the harmful bacteria. Food storage stage. Keep cold food cold and hot food hot. Maintain hot, cook food at 140 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Reheat cooked food to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Refrigerate or freeze perishables, produce, preferred food, and leftovers within 2 hours. Never defrost food on the kitchen counter. Use the refrigerator, cold running water, or microwave oven. Never let food marinate at room temperature. Refrigerate it. Divide large amount of leftovers into small, swallow containers for quick cooling in the refrigerator. Remove the stuffing from the poultry and other meat immediately and refrigerate it in a separate counter. Wash all the unpacked and packed and not marked wash fruits and vegetables under running water just before eating, cutting, or cooking. Scrub firm produce, such as melons and cucumbers, with a clean produce brush. Dry all produce with a paper towel to further reduce any possible bacterial growth. Do not overcrowd the refrigerator. Cool air must circulate to keep food safe. Food handlers must follow correct storage upon receiving to avoid cross-contamination.